All right, welcome to Quantum Kinetics First Diffusion, Episode 4. We have a special guest today. His name is
Jason MacCoy.
Jason MacCoy. So, Jason, how long have we known each other?
Gosh, many years. I first met you as a student in my 3D animation class at the UW.
Oh my gosh, that's right. What year was that? 2000?
Oh God, I don't know. That's
two?
That sounds about right. It was back a ways.
What were you? What did you teach me? I can't even remember.
3D animation, 3D Max, 3D modeling, video game production, basically. And I remembered you were quite ambitious with the Master Chief character, trying to make a whole video game with one person and a small budget of nothing.
Well, that's life really hasn't changed all that much. Now it's switched to Iron Man. So
yeah, and the ambition has definitely gone up a notch because I think nuclear fusion and cold fusion is definitely a step in that direction for sure.
Absolutely, and that's a great segue to what is nuclear fusion, Jason? Do you have any idea what nuclear fusion is?
You know, as a person who's interested in it, I have tried to learn as much as I can about it. And one of the things that always comes up is that if you don't, something to the effect of if you don't understand nuclear fusion, you're doing it right or something like that. You'll have to find the quote on that. But my understanding of it is if you can take two atoms and force them together into one, then that is fusing two things together.
Correct.
And fission is when you take like a huge uranium atom, 235?
Yeah, 235.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And you break it apart, that's fission. And that also releases energy.
Yeah.
But fusion is better because it creates more energy. Is that right? I mean,
yeah. Every time there's some type of atomic reaction of a nucleus, like say it's fusing together to change the core or breaking apart the core, there is some type of energy release, either an X-ray or a gamma ray or even visible light. Sometimes you can get that to happen. So the trick is to do it controlled and to do it consistently. And here at Quantum Kinetics, what we've figured out, the quantum kinetic well phenomenon, is that we can actually use harmonic oscillators, particle oscillation as an energy generator. It's very similar to music. And so that's why we want to have you on. That's why you're on the show today, is because you have a technology that you've patented, right?
Yeah.
And it does, what does it do?
Well, what it is, McCain, is it's a form of writing music. It's a form of music notation that uses numbers instead of dots on lines. Mm-hmm. The way that traditional music theory was done and is currently done is they write the dots on what's called the grand staff, where you have a treble clef and a bass clef. And those dots on particular lines mean a specific note.
Sure.
But people have a hard time reading that music notation because it requires a lot of memorization to remember what dot on what line equals what note. And by the way, to make it even more complicated, each clef has different assignments of what note is on what line. And so it requires a lot of memorization. And so the way I got into the patent I created was I took a music lesson, at that time actually a harmonica lesson, because I was like, well, I don't want to carry around a piano everywhere I go. It's a little hard to wheel that thing around.
You're like the harmonica man from the old Western spaghetti movies, you know?
That's right. If I brought my harmonica, I could play a little for you too. But during one of the lessons, these serendipitous moments when you're creating or something, an idea hits you. Mm-hmm. The harmonica teacher brought me over to a piano and played a chord for me. Yeah. And a chord is a combination of notes. So 3 different notes. Like, so on the keyboard here, if I go, that's what would be termed as a C major chord. Mm-hmm. And when he was explaining it to me, he said, well, you can just count the distance between the notes, and that informs you what the next proper note to play is.
So there's like a geometry, shaping, spacing that occurs on these octave keys that allow it to be something that your ear hears, that it feels good or it feels natural. But if you go out of that span, it doesn't quite feel right, right?
Absolutely. And it's really interesting. The human mind is so powerful. I think the more that even as we learn about AI and the capabilities of AI and robotics, you start to realize the massive capabilities of the human body and really all animal capabilities,
Sure.
and our ear has the ability to hear frequencies. And we like certain frequencies because they have specific ratios, relationships between them. So these ratios are great. This ratio,
Not so good.
not so much.
Yeah.
It's called dissonance. And when things are lined up and harmonious, they sound pleasant. And when they're dissonant, they sound kind of irritative, irritable, And what happens is what's going on behind the scene there is the mathematics of the frequencies are lining up in a certain way where they're sounding pleasant because
Right.
they're lining up. If they don't line up, it creates that dissonance.
It's interesting because in like physics, we have this thing called the electromagnetic spectrum, which is determined by this thing called hertz. And so like if you have 30 hertz, that's an audible sound, but technically it's still an electromagnetic radiation because if you go up to like kilohertz, that's still audio, but it's like a high-pitched like dog whistle, like 5.2 kilohertz. That's a dog whistle. It can barely make it out, right? It's there. And if you go up the electromagnetic spectrum even further, you can get into like the gigahertz and the terahertz and the, whatever. It goes on and on and on. But it's still the same unit, which is hertz. So it's interesting to me with your numbered notes approach, which is not this complex thing. Can you tell us a little bit more about your patent with making learning music easier?
Sure. The thing that confuses most people is trying to interpret the dots on the lines. It requires an overhead to interpret it.
Just to the audience, because I don't actually know what overhead is.
Yeah.
So what if you want to tell the audience what's overhead mean?
Sure. That's great. That's a great question. Great comment. Overhead is what it takes us to mentally process interpreting something from one thing to another.
Mm-hmm.
So if things are clear and intuitive, it requires minimal overhead.
Okay.
We understand it, we get it.
It's kind of like a computer processing motherboard or whatever. It's like, it's not like if I'm running OS and I don't have all the spamware running, I don't have a lot of overhead because I'm just focusing on running OS.
Right.
But if I have all these other operations, my overhead is bogged down and my computer goes slow and the update function's terrible. And I can't run 3D Studio Max and I can't run SolidWorks and I can't run, animation. So your brain and music kind of have the same systems. Is this correct or am I incorrect?
Yeah. I mean, it's even, analogous to reading letters off of a page where you're trying to read what each letter is to interpret the word. And music it can be done and is analogous in the same way. What I did and what the patent really does is it just uses numbers 1 through 12, like on a clock.
Okay.
And so when you're looking at the piano, you don't have to guess what the note is. You can literally see the number and play the number. And what that allows you to do is immediately bypass that whole system of trying to interpret the dots on the lines and go straight to just reading the number and playing it on the keys. Just like you're dialing numbers of a phone number.
Why didn't anyone think of this? This seems like a pretty straightforward thing. Because I remember when I was in elementary school and they gave me the recorder.
Yeah.
And they said, play this thing. And it was FACE with all these lines and all these dots. And I'm like, you guys taught me math, multiplication and addition. You taught me English, ABCs. Why aren't we using ABCs, in like, or 1, 2, 3s? I feel like my brain, 1, 2, 3 is a lot easier than an ABC, to be honest, especially. So can you tell us and the audience a little bit about, like, give us a quick demo of like how, can you really just play us something real quick? Like if you have the numbered notes, I can see it over there on the, and we'll show this too on the B-roll, but you can see I can see numbers and they mean something. Can you tell us what the numbers mean?
Sure. Let me play something for you.
Oh, baby.
And then,
hit me.
This is called Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. It's a big hit in the
Boy,
club
that's
right
fitting
now.
for nuclear fusion now, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, you know what? I didn't even think of that, but yes, it is. So what I'm doing there in my mind, I'm kind of just playing like a phone number.
Yeah,
You know, like I
you
was
are.
dialing a phone number. But what you're hearing is you're hearing the interval relationships between certain notes.
Hmm.
And that's what makes up that song. And so it makes it so much easier just to play by number. And any song of really any genre and on any instrument, you can play by number in this way.
Yeah.
And so what it does is if you've never played music, and I'm going to put you to the test.
Oh man, I am
at
so
some
bad
point
at
here,
music.
we're gonna start the quantum kinetics fusion band. No pun intended. Um, well, it allows you to basically just play by number. So let me just tell you what the numbers are here.
Yeah, sure.
So Twinkle Twinkle is 1 1 8 8 10 10 8 6 6 5 5 3 3 1.
You know what this reminds me of? I had this just this flash hit me as you were playing that was there's a movie called The Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And in the movie there's this sound, this kid playing on this, what do they call those chime, they're like
Xylophone?
Xylophone. It's just hitting the notes. And in the movie, it's like, yeah, and it just played over and over. And it's like the aliens communicate with the humans through numbers.
Let me see if it's. I have to see what
It's something like that. It's very something like
They're
that.
Fundamental intervals is what.
Okay, boom. Okay, let's go into that because fundamental intervals. Oh man, now we're getting really close to nuclear fusion. Okay, this is super exciting. So just for the audience, this is so cool. Fundamental intervals. Go ahead and explain that to the audience like they don't know what that is.
Okay, sure. So the main thing about music theory is what is called an octave.
Yeah.
And what that means is basically the frequency doubles going up and it halves going down from that starting point. So I'll give you a demonstration here. So if I go from this one to this one, that's doubling.
Because that's a full spectrum of 1 to 12 to 13.
Yes.
That's a 13.
Yeah. That's when and I'll do 3 of them, or I can do 4 of them because this keyboard does that. So listen to this. And then we go down. So what's going on there is the frequencies, as I go up, they're doubling. And if I go from the high, it halves, and halves.
So can you explain to the audience why that mechanism takes place in a sound wave on a board, a keyboard or something, or just in music theory? Why does it halve on the way down?
Well, your ear is particularly capable of hearing that change and comparison of frequencies. That's really interesting, and it's also particularly capable of hearing it at the half, and the third, and the quarter, and the fifth, and the sixth. And so these are the primary intervals that have made up the primary 7 notes of a scale. And our ear is very good at hearing that. In fact, not to go down too far down the history of music theory.
No, go for it.
But what the way it started was the letters A through G. So that did make sense, and that was sequential. During the medieval ages, they added the additional notes, which are called the accidentals. And that allowed them to play these sort of notes and intervals in between to create these very unique sounds.
Is this like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like J.S. Bach? Because J.S. Bach would play, he was kind of like a revolutionary of the time, and he would play several keys at once right away, and it would just resonate the entire cathedral. So they had the organ that would be basically affixed to the entire church, right? Does that have anything to do with the resonant frequency of the church itself through an audible vibration?
Well, when you're in a church, the whole structure is built for acoustics. And one of the things obviously about being in church is the powerful feeling of that music,
Right.
in any way, shape, or form, but that our body can feel those vibrations.
Yeah.
And I was telling you this before the conversation here, that when you create art, when you draw, that's cool and that's creative. When you paint, that's creative.
Yeah.
But when you play music, it really is living, and you can feel it. And there's something very exciting about you're giving it life as you're playing it, and that really is an incredible feeling. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to leave this piano here for
thank you. Appreciate
to play
it.
afterwards.
I will be doing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
Again, the Quantum Kinetics Fusion Band.
Yeah.
Get ready for our first gig.
Does it have fusion food too? Because I love fusion food.
Should we call it a fission band, actually? I mean, would that be more appropriate? I'm wondering if fusion is fission. What are we?
Well, actually, in our research, we found out that
it would be fusion now that I think about it.
It does both. And here, we can actually talk more about that with the audio, is that we found in our research that it's doing a fusion reaction. And we've also found that with like heavier elements, it goes through a fission reaction.
So it's breaking it apart and it's putting it together?
Yeah. So when we turn on our reactors, it's like pulling heavy elements towards iron, and then it's pulling light elements towards iron, and it kind of has a peak, which is like the island of stability, essentially, in a way. But what I want to draw a correlation to quantum kinetics apparatus is that we use beats, we use frequency, we use harmonics, we use heterodyne mixing of sounds together like an octave.
And what is that? Heterodyne, what does that mean?
Yeah, good. So heterodyne means that you just mix signals together. Like say if you have like a wave and then you have another wave, and when they coalesce together, you can see both waves in them together. And so they kind of they do this thing called competing and then addition and subtraction. Just like a chord, right? Like if you have a very lovely chord of multiple keys, it sounds awesome. Like you demonstrated earlier, if you do it wrong, it sounds like garbage, right? And so in nuclear fusion, we've found that if we can hit those harmonic oscillations of particle oscillations at an energy generator in a musical way, like Bach or numbered notes or whatever, we can get a better result. And like you were saying about the church, the audio that you hear in your ear actually vibrates inside your bones. Like your bones, because the resonant chamber, essentially the ARC reactor is a resonant chamber that has certain tunes, like you can see the electrodes, they're tuned, and then they resonate in the chamber and they amplify on each other.
Yeah.
So you're finding a way to find the path of least resistance to create the biggest effects.
Yeah.
To your emotions.
Yeah.
Right. And the universe, as we talked about in the last episode, episode 3, that there is something harmonically attuned to life, creation, fusion, and all that.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about anything more about harmonics, octaves, and how it might relate to the wave functions of quantum physics?
Yeah, and actually, it's a perfect segue. And I want to show one more thing, and I want to ask you about when we've all seen the singer singing into the crystal glass, and that glass shattering apart. So I'm going to play the notes all at the same time. I was doing them one at a time, but you'll hear them starting to resonate with each other as I play 1, 1, 1, and 1. So here we go.
Sweet.
Okay, so all of those notes together.
Yeah. That's a heterodyne mixture.
Yeah. And so help me understand this from a physicist's perspective.
Sure.
When a singer sings at the glass, my understanding is the glass has a resonant frequency. And when the singer sings in that same frequency, they're basically adding to the amplitude, the height of the wave of that resonant frequency. And then when they add enough energy to it, that crystal glass can't handle it anymore,
right.
and it pops apart.
Very good. Yeah. So there's a thing called, like, it's very similar to, like, if you had a ball on a string and a paddle. Remember those old toys from, like, I think it's the 40s or 50s or something like that?
That knocker thing when you go...
Although the knocker, too, is also a good analogy.
You're talking about the one on the rubber band?
Yeah, I'm talking the one, like, old rubber red
I've hit
thing.
myself in the face with that a few times, yeah.
It's totally like that. So, like, let's say that the ball is hanging down and the string is taut, right?
Yeah.
And I start moving my hand up and down slowly. It's like, okay, that's really not that much of a rebounding because you haven't given enough input.
You're saying it hasn't hit the board yet?
It hasn't even hit the board yet.
You're just the elasticity of it.
Yeah, the string has got this elasticity. It's a spring coefficient, right?
Okay.
And so as you increase the amplitude, you can get a nice amplitude and then it starts hitting the board, but it's not quite the right frequency to, like, keep it going in a particle oscillation energy generator situation scheme, right? So on top of having, once you find the right frequency of getting the ball and the coefficient, the spring coefficient and the mass and to get going in the bounce,
right.
All I have to do is, once I have the frequency, is increase the amplitude,
right,
and then bam, the glass breaks. But you have to first find the mode resonance of the glass,
right.
And there is actually a really fancy way to find that. You just click it with a fork.
A tuning fork?
Just hit it with and it's exactly like a tuning fork. Here's another interesting physics experiment that they found out a long time ago, which is really amazing. If you have two tuning forks, okay, and they're both middle C, say, right? What's the number on middle C? What's the actual hertz?
Well, I can tell you A is 440.
Okay, let's just say it's A 440, and they're both exactly the same tuning fork. And I take this fork and I pass it way far away. And I hit this one with a mallet, and then I silence it. Do you know what happens to the one that's really far away?
I'm going to say the other one is ringing.
It immediately starts ringing, and you didn't even touch it. You didn't interact with it. And the reason why is exactly the same phenomenon with radios. When you pick up a radio signal in the air, when an antenna is tuned to that frequency, it automatically picks it up, and then you can turn the volume up and hear, 106.1,
Is that so? You know what? I actually didn't know that. I understand this from, like, reading and writing music, but some of this theory stuff is actually super interesting to talk to you about. One of the reasons I love talking with you about this stuff is to be able to ask you physics questions and get a better understanding. So when you broadcast a radio frequency, it's the tower that's vibrating at that same thing. That's how it picks it up. Is that how it hears it or gets the signal? So
that's a really complicated question to see. The radio is actually quite complicated. There's AM radio and there's FM radio, right? So AM radio is amplitude modulation up and down.
Frequency, everyone's
and then frequency is modulation this way. Frequency, thank you, is this way. And so when you have an antenna that's sticking up, if I pulse the antenna a certain frequency, that antenna has to be matched to some degree, either a 1/4 or a 1/8 or a 1-to-1, very similar to the music notes.
It has to be a relative octave degree of that.
You see how it's all kind of coming together here?
Yeah.
This is really big stuff. Like, this is...
let me just jump on this while we're at it.
Yeah.
Do atoms have a frequency? I mean, is that what... talking about quantum kinetic stuff, are atoms vibrating at a certain frequency?
Yes.
Can we amplify them?
Yes. And so what we do, because an atom is like this thing that you can't even see, really, right?
Yeah.
We need special instruments to see it. But you know what's funny, Jason? Is an atom is mostly 99% empty space. There's nothing there. It's nothingness, essentially.
So how do you get it to wiggle? Like, how do you pump it up with energy? You
have to use these things called fundamental forces, which is electrostatics and magnetic fields. And when something is called a fundamental force, what it's just basically saying is there is no mass, but it makes things move. That's all it means. So an atom has mass, which also has a very small electrostatic field inside of it that's propagating out.
Oh.
It also has a magnetic field propagating out. One atom or one electron is basically like a little mini planet because it has the E field and then it has a magnetic field around it. Very similar to the way that this is structured, the ARC reactor, when it's on. It's this pulsing unipolar thing that has mass, which also has gravity innately embedded into it. So to go back to your question about like quantum jittering things, you can create a macroscopic object that communicates harmonically resonance with atoms in its general vicinity. So for example, the quantum kinetic fusor or the ARC reactor, if you put water in it, the resonant frequency of this reactor with air will be, let's say, 22 kilohertz. And it will resonate, the whole thing will resonate with the environment at that frequency. And if you turn up the volume, it's like the glass breaking. You found the resonance of the glass, and then you turn the volume and it breaks.
So can you shake atoms apart?
Yeah.
And is that how you fuse
That's
them
what it's
together? You
doing.
vibrate that thing?
That's exactly what it's basically glass breaking, but it's atom breaking inside.
Huh.
And if you pour water in it, it changes the resonant frequency, and then you have to tune your circuits to find the resonance, and then you just turn the volume up. It's exactly like the opera singer.
That's so interesting. And then one of the things I always wonder about, like quantum physics and stuff, you guys always show these graphs on your videos.
Mm-hmm.
And I watch all the videos, by the way.
Thank you for doing that.
I enjoy watching you and Randall do these videos. And
special shout out.
Yeah, special shout out to Randall. You guys always show these graphs.
Yeah.
And they're very scientific and mathematical. Is that showing that you have taken an atom and shaken it apart, or you've taken a big atom and turned it into two things? In general, what are those graphs showing?
So the graph is showing us the X-ray emissions. It's the same thing when a glass shatters, it emits a sound, right? It shatters and you hear it. Even the word shatter implies sound.
Yeah.
Right? And since you're using audio to shatter glass, it's not going to emit X-rays. Maybe a little tiny bit of X-rays, but nothing major. But it emits a lot of sound waves. But when we do it with our process, we emit the graph is the shattering sound of the atoms.
And is
they're
that
screaming.
Is that how you know? Is that how you know something worked? Is that your way of saying we know this worked because we can see on this graph that we have this particular signature of bars that are showing us what happened?
Exactly. It's like if you heard a really thick piece of glass break, it would sound slightly different than a wine glass. It would have a different kind of thuddy breaking sound versus a high-pitched shattering sound, right?
Yeah.
And so by looking at the graph of the emission spectrum, the spectrum's telling you what is actually breaking and what it's breaking into. It's actually transmutating as it breaks into something else because it's trying to find stability. Like the whole universe is one job. Mother Nature is find stability at all costs. And if you're playing music that's resonant, octave harmonically matched, and you have to follow Mother Nature's pathways, music notes, numbered notes, to make her do what you want. And also to make yourself feel better. I mean, like when you're sad, you listen to sad, classical music. When you're happy, you listen to what kind of music, right? What kind of music do you listen to when you're happy?
Like
you're jamming.
Yeah, more jamming, funk kind of stuff.
More upbeat, right?
Yeah.
And so your mood is really kind of like music too.
Totally.
And so the universe is kind of like it is a musical instrument.
It's funny how music is very emotional. That's the thing that it's, what's strange too is that what I've learned in we've talked about the personal journey of being inventors too. This is very technical. Numbers, it's all numbers, and playing by numbers is, very literal and direct. But the feeling that you get when you're when you're doing it is all emotional. And also, there's something very interesting about the reading and playing by numbers is very cerebral, but the emotion of it is very like core emotional. It's there's nothing to, and sometimes when you're playing music, particularly when you're guitar, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I'm not thinking numbers and I'm not thinking what string I'm on or whatever. My body just takes over. So there's a strange like connection between the thinking part of the mind and the emotional part of the mind.
Would you say sorry to interrupt, but would you say that like the creative and the driving, the creative and imaginative is like there's another string that pulls you up to a higher vibration of like understanding of what you're doing because you're pushing the envelope, right? Do you feel like kind of a euphoria as you do invention?
Yeah. There's a part where you're playing when you're playing music. At first, it's very technical, and you're just like, "What note am I on?" Like when I was playing Twinkle Twinkle, there, I'm thinking in my head, 1 1 8 8 10 10 8 6 6 5 5 3 3 1. I played that song and written it out a million times, so I know the numbers. And but when I'm playing guitar now, and I'll bring it in for next thing.
Sure.
That is very emotional, and actually, it's when your mind turns off, your body takes over, and then it's all emotional. It's very fun, and it's a thrilling thing. I'm excited to like watch you progress in music too.
Yeah.
You'll see it's a fun experience. But I have a question for you about this kind of stuff. Tesla said that the universe is all frequencies, right? And what is your take on that? Is that everything's energy? Is that all matter is actually a waveform? Like, what does that mean to you? What does that quote mean to you?
Well, I think because Tesla he changed the world. I mean, he made radio, he made, he did AC motors, he revolutionized the 20th century and even parts of the 21st century. Like his technology is continuing to change the world, and we still use it today. Waves, you can't think of the world in a classical Einsteinian kind of way because it's not the truth. The truth is actually that you're made of empty space. I mean, you really are. You're 99% empty space. So the idea of flesh and you're pushing on your body or a ball rolling on a table, it's not real. That's an illusion of fidelity. It's not there. It's really just empty. And the waves, the competing waves, the octave waves, the resonance, the heterodyne mixing of all the different waves and electricity, it creates the illusion of real matter. Like this penny is not, I drop it on the table and it just sits on the table. However, if I were to take the penny and find a way to resonate this in a very specific way, where it was out of phase with the table itself, I could drop it and it would go right through the table because the update function of the universe's waves are out of phase with the penny, and that will be going through the table because, again, everything's basically empty space, waves.
Is this potentially analogous to two atoms overcoming the Coulomb barrier?
That's exactly what it is, which is nuclear fusion.
Yeah.
Safe, cold, nuclear fusion, ARC reactor, fusion on demand.
So when you always say safe and cold, is that because if you are doing it by oscillating it at the right frequency, it will fuse instead of having to smash it in a 3-mile track like they do with those giant particle colliders?
Yeah. So work smarter, not harder, right? Yeah. So if you're doing something for 75 years where you're spooling up these charged particles and smashing them together and they blow up and they die, that's really not that useful. And it's kind of like, this is kind of a really terrible analogy, but I have to use it because it's kind of helpful. If I'm a truck driver and I'm driving in the dark and I have my headlights on and all of a sudden something jumps out in front of me and I hit it, but I didn't see it. I just know I hit something because it's dark. So I stop and I get out of the car and say, "Oh my God, what did I hit?"
Like a bug splattering.
No, like
across
like
you.
let's say it's a cat or something, sat,
Okay.
right? I hit a cat and I get out and I look around and there's just parts everywhere. Like parts of the cat everywhere. And I don't know, the cat is no longer useful because it got blown into little pieces everywhere. That's particle physics right now. They don't, they're just doing it because they can, and it doesn't mean the cat's gone. So how do I identify
That's
and
why. By the way, that's why I said the bug.
yeah, yeah, the cat. I
Somebody's
feel.
looking at
I
the
actually.
cat right
I
now
was
going,
like.
"Oh
I'm like.
no!"
Oh my god! Like.
So if something, if two things smash, if you smash something together and the parts are blown all over the place,
Yeah.
that's okay. So that's a particle collider. But what about? I see when I watch these science videos.
Mhm.
This is again, this is me taking you up on is Ask the Science Guy. I see there's these different type of nuclear reactors.
Yes.
There is the donut shaped one, which is what a tokamak
So
reactor.
there's the one that looks like a swirling donut,
That's
which
that's a
which is a
stellarator.
stellarator.
Yeah.
Then the donut one that you're talking about is a tokamak,
Okay.
and then there's
And then there's one, yeah, where they're shooting lasers at it. Like what is
yeah.
that?
So that's inertial confinement. That's where
Okay.
they do like the laser shooting into a pellet, which then the pellet's inside a resonant cavity, very
Right.
similar to a music zapping it, and then the X-rays form off the walls, and then they compress
Oh.
the fuel, and then it pops it.
And what is your take on, like, objectively? Obviously, you have a different way of doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
But what is your take on those alternative systems? For example,
Mm-hmm.
I even the other night I saw something on thorium that I wanted to ask you about,
Ooh,
and they were saying, yeah, they're melting salt. The salt melts, the thorium reacts, the salt melts, and that's a thing.
Mhm.
And you probably, I mean, I got to imagine, are watching all these things, people trying to come out with these new ideas all the time. What is your take on them by comparison? Are they good ideas? Are they missing something?
Well, if you want to talk specifically about the thorium salt hot reactors that, say, TerraPower is using, I would say that there are a ton of engineering complications that you have to take advantage, or not take advantage of, but like figure out. For example, thorium is radioactive. Salt is corrosive. You have pipes that are stainless steel that are flowing into coolant reservoirs or radiators that are made of stainless steel. And highly radioactive substances that shoot off neutrons, they destroy and break down stainless steel, and they actually transmute it into weakened material, glassify it essentially. After a certain amount of time, your reactor will have leaks. I mean, it's going to happen. And you have radioactive sludge sliding through all your stuff, and it's going to be a problem. So my take on hot salt thorium reactors is that it's a Band-Aid on a gushing wound problem, and it's only going to be short-lived. It's a lot of money to get it going. Bill Gates has to put a lot of money in to get it started. But yeah, you're going to have a short-term gain, long-term problems. Guaranteed. There's no way out of that one. So you have to start thinking smarter, and you have to be an inventor and an imagination of thinking outside the box. Because if you don't think outside the box, you are always going to be doing the same thing over and over. And as we know, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, is the definition
crazy
of insanity.
Yeah, there you go.
So I think that it's a great attempt. Like you have to applaud them for their attempt. They really are trying. But we don't have time for this. Mother Earth does not have time for this. Our harmonics are changing on Mother Earth. The pH levels of the ocean are changing. They're going up. The coral reefs are dying. Like, we have to come up with a very viable solution and do it fast. That's economic. And cold nuclear fusion using the ARC reactor is the answer. Okay.
So it's like a smarter way. Like they say work smarter, not harder. Is that kind of what the opportunity is here? That there's a better way to do it where you're not just smashing things together with using tons of energy. Is that the idea?
Yeah. And I will say this: this technology has been under a blanket for a long time, and finally it's coming up, and it's very exciting for us at Quantum Kinetics, and I know it's exciting for you, Jason, because because like, we've known each other for so long. Just to kind of wrap this up and put a bow on it, as we do with these episodes, is like we've known each other for a long time, and our paths have gone different directions in our lifetimes, and we've gathered data over here, and he's gathered data over there, and it's very euphoric almost to say that the data that we've collected is becoming synergized into a pinnacle moment of human discovery, which is that nuclear fusion is safe, it's harmonic, it's beautiful, and it is full of love. Like when you play music and it hits your heart and you just want to like cry, like that is something, it's love. It's creation. It's all of it wrapped up into one. And that's what we have to do as a society, is we have to literally find a way to use technology to manifest infinitesimal love around the planet. And once we do that, it's going to be a really groovy concert. Yeah. It's going to be awesome.
There's such an opportunity. Just on a personal story, when I was teaching 3D animation, one of the projects I gave the students was to create a future city, and a city in the future. And I was shocked because every one of the students, and I mean every one of them, picked a post-apocalyptic, terrible, destroyed robot future where everything was smashed and destroyed. And I'm not kidding when I say it, like it literally moved me. I was like, everybody thinks it's going to turn into that. Like we have to do something better than that. Yeah. And we have to use our technology and our capabilities and invention. You and I have had many talks about being an inventor, and that only, inventors can make things 100 times better.
Yeah.
We have big problems.
Yeah, we do.
And I'm preaching to the choir here, I know. But we can solve big problems too.
Yes.
And we can do it the smart way, because if we do it the hard way, as you said with the particle collider and some of the other competitors, you're just burning up time and energy and money. But if you do it the smart way, there's a tremendous opportunity to make a big change for the better.
And to go on that point about the class, because I think I remember doing a class with you at the UW where we had to actually make a city that was futuristic. And I remember that in 2002. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I remember making this like island, and it was like a city, and it was like a really it looked like kind of like like in WALL-E, and you had like the future, but it was really gardenous. Like
was it a floating city?
It's kind of like a floating city, yeah. And it was beautiful, and it was like Mother Earth was all ingrained into the technology. So I feel, as looking back on this these thought processes of like what our time was, my time, and then your new students, is that the collective consciousness of the human spirit on planet Earth is feeling depressed. Like we all kind of know where it's going right now at the current path. But I feel that, actually I know for a fact that this technology is going to open us up to the real new Garden of Eden. And we can't do this without your help and your support. This is going nowhere fast without your love, your support, and your backing. Because there are forces out there that have an agenda and they want to do certain things. And dude, like, we all have this subconscious feeling in our hearts like it's going into the wrong direction. And it's up to you, the audience, the people, to say, no, we want a better place, and we're gonna get it. And it's here. It's for you.
Yeah, and it was something else to share with you is I am an investor.
Yes, you are.
And
Thank you very much.
And I'm not the $1 million guy investing.
Sure.
I'm the regular income guy investing.
Yeah.
But let me say why I invested. Let me tell you why I invested.
Sure.
Credibility. Yeah. Despite knowing you for as long as I've known you, when you know somebody and they say I'm becoming a quantum physicist and I invented quantum fusion in my garage, you got to take that with a grain of salt. You know that, right? But
what did Randall say? This guy's crackers.
You know what? But you know what wasn't crackers? Government tests.
Yes.
Government tests to me, you showed me these government tests and I was like, okay, I mean, How do you get a government test that shows that you're creating transmutation? And how do you get a government test that shows results from scientific studies? That to me was credibility. And I say this because I'm sure when people see creative people doing these things, they're like, yeah, you know, I want proof.
Yeah.
I wanted proof before I put money in.
Right.
You know, and I was like, I want to see the government study. And I was really impressed with that. So I just wanted to congratulate you on doing that.
Well, thank you.
And, you know, because I thought that was a great thing that made a difference for me to put money in. And I'm behind this 100%. And as I look around the lab, I'm super impressed. I feel like a 10-year-old kid, and I want to touch toys and turn stuff on, and you know, it's really impressive. So hats off to you for what you guys have done.
Well, and that's why we're doing it all into the ARC reactors, because when you look at the ARC reactor when you're like a 6-year-old, and this is also what Disney did too with the, you know, like Russell Bobbitt. Yeah, Russell Bobbitt, when he made that, he knew his deep down inside, like that was really special, and it was like the kid inside of him was resonating now, like that energy, that creative juices, like, man, this is really important. And it's like, man, like this technology is for everybody. I can't stress that enough.
I'm so excited. You know, maybe on another podcast, because you said we got to put a bow on this.
Yeah, we're like 10 minutes later, but it's so good.
Like cool stuff. We want to know the cool stuff. We want to know what's possible with this technology.
Yeah.
Like everybody is watching these things. You know, I talked to Randall a little bit about it, and obviously when we go to lunch and stuff, I'm always curious what other cool things can be done with this. So maybe on another time, let us in on some other stuff.
I will give you a hint, actually. I have a friend that I've known pretty much since I was 11 years old. We did gymnastics together, and we'll probably have him on the show too. But he's working on some simulations with AI, and these simulations are based on harmonics, they're based on music theory, they're based on the octaves, they're based on the spacing, the 1 through 12.
Yeah.
And you guys, if we show this stuff, your brains are going to explode, because like the AI already knows a lot, and it's really kind of amazing. And we have just to put a bow on this episode about music. Yes. Yeah, this is like Christmas on top of Christmas. Yeah. That we can't rely 100% on AI, because the real AI is the brain between your eyes. The creative juices of innovation and creation is you. You are that thing. And you can use music, you can use electronics to bring your level higher and higher of better creation and invention, to a point where you may transcend into potentially a colonizing species that goes to Mars. Legitimately, not figuratively, real. So we've got to get there. We can do it. This technology allows us to do it, but we all have to accept it, right? Like you are accepting, Randall's accepting. We have like 20 other people that are now beginning to accept. The movement is beginning. It's happening. And we're so happy that you're coming along for the journey, because this is really it. So,
well, I'm excited to be part of it too.
We're so happy you came on the show. It's so great to have you, and thank you for teaching me about numbered notes. And you guys should check it out. I mean, do you have some product that you're going to be launching soon at all for numbered notes?
I do. I have a website, and I sell the piano keyboard stickers on Amazon.
Okay, great.
And on my website. I'll be coming out with guitar pretty soon.
Okay, cool.
I think I may have shown you a few diagrams.
That's really cool.
I'm going to play guitar for you, and we're gonna get you on the keyboards, and I'll play guitar, and we'll have a little jam session. We'll get Randall in the mix too.
Just as long as not the recorder, because I was terrible at that. So, but thank you.
You'd be surprised how many people have like learning music need therapy for that stuff. It's like, but it'll be fun.
I think I'm one of them. So
yeah.
But
thanks for asking. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll put his information in the link description below, so you can check that out, everyone. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Jason, for coming on the show and teaching us. So without further ado, we're going to let you guys go, and we'll get ready for episode 5 for First Diffusion. This is really exciting. So anyway, we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one, and thanks again.
Well, I think that's just going to hot take. I think that is the episode.
Yeah, that's the episode. We found out with hot take when we did it. Wow. It was like, this is good enough. Let's just put it out there. You guys did great.
Thank you,
dude.
Thank you. That was awesome.
That was
Thank
great.
You so much.